Hello friends, I'm Brian, and this is Gizmo Board Games. Today I am bringing my 10 favorite game mechanisms, bet game styles, game whatever you want to call it. A couple weeks ago I brought my 5 least favorites, so today I'm coming back at you with my 10 favorite game styles and some sneak previews here maybe, if you can read into what I've got next to me. I'll call them out as they come. I appreciate you coming. If you're a first-time watcher, welcome. I try to bring a new video out every week. I bring game reviews, top 10 lists, or just general board game discussion, along with maybe some prizes here and there outside of my normal postings. So thanks for coming here. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more like me, and don't forget to comment below. All that said, let's go ahead and get to the list. So I said it was a top 10, but I'm going to go ahead and start us off with an honorable mention, which is kind of an adjacent to one of the things from my lower list last time. And this is legacy games. So I mentioned campaign games last time as something I don't like. Legacy games, I guess some can see them as kind of a campaign game, but I don't necessarily. I like legacy games because, yes, there's a little bit of flavor text, story, whatever that you're learning. But I really like the fact that you're changing the game as you move along. You're maybe putting stickers on the board, or pulling out new cards or new tools, or changing the rules, or whatever the case is. Every game is going to lead to something different the next game. Whereas campaign games, yes, you might have a different dungeon the next game, and like bookkeeping and things like that. But with a legacy game, I feel like it's just more in flux. A campaign game, usually you're playing the same game each time, just in a different setting. Whereas a legacy game, like your game 1 and your game 10, 11, 12, whatever the case is, are going to be vastly different. So that's my honorable mention. Legacy games, I really enjoy playing them. Specifically, I'm thinking of like Pandemic. It's the one I played the most. But I have Charterstone, and I've played a couple other, I think, along the way. That's my honorable mention. So let's go ahead and get to the meat of the list. My number 10 favorite game style, game mechanism, whatever you want to call it, and that is doing a little cheat, and it's my list. So I cheated with an honorable mention. Let me go ahead and cheat again right away on my number 10. That is card drafting and or using cards as a resource in the game. And I'm thinking of games like Terraforming Mars, or I have Ares Expedition here, where you're going to take a deck of cards. You're going to pick the ones you want to keep. You may or may not have to pay for them with money or whatever, and then pass along, drafting new cards as people pass them around the table. There's other examples. There's Sushi Go, whatever. Using cards as a resource, though, really comes into play with like Terraforming Mars for sure, or Race for the Galaxy, where in order to play cards, you can use the cards, and especially in Race for the Galaxy, as your payment. So you're not collecting resources, you're not collecting anything else. You literally, I want to play this card. It cost me 3 other cards. Now these cards I used to have in my hand are gone. They're out of my hand. So you're drafting the cards, but then really you're drafting resources, because some of those cards you're just not even going to use. So I just really like the interplay of those two mechanisms, especially like Race for the Galaxy, a little lesser extent in Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, where you can turn those cards into money. I'm sure there's other examples I'm not thinking of offhand, but the main one that I know it from is Race for the Galaxy, where you have the resources as payment, and then with card drafting, like Sushi Go or whatever, 7 Wonders. I don't know why I couldn't come up with that, where you're picking what you want out of the hand and passing it around. So that's my number 10. It's kind of a cheat, but I promise I won't cheat again. All right, my number 9 favorite style is tile placement. This is where you're taking tiles off of a stack generally. I've got Subterra here as my example for this one. There's plenty others. Cascadia, you could call that, or you're picking a tile, and then you're going to place it into your tableau or into a central gaming board in the case of Subterra. And where you place it, how you place it, what's on that tile is going to dictate kind of what happens with the game. You can score points, or in the case of Subterra, it's going to create the new path. Cascadia, other similar games where you want to get certain connectivity with the tiles. At Traintopia, where it's a combination of where you place it and what's on that line altogether. You can make points out of just a lot of variety in this one little mechanism of tile placement. Basically, where you're just taking a tile and popping it into a place in order to do whatever it is you're trying to do in said game that requires tile placement. I just like it. Usually it adds a little bit of variability, a little bit of variety to the game, because you're changing the world generally. I really like the ones where the tiles become the game board. So that's the main reason I put this on here, but there are plenty of other examples of tile placement. All right, moving on to my number 8. This is a game with a moving or evolving economy, or kind of the ebb and flow of the based on what the players are doing. They're creating their own economy, making certain things better as there's more demand, and worse, obviously, as demand goes away. Whatever the case is, I've got Clans Caledonia here as kind of my example of that. But I really like. Again, I mentioned in my least favorite that I don't like games that don't have variability. If you got a moving economy in the game, that's built-in variability. Another example, I guess off the top of my head, is Power Grid, where it's a bidding game a little bit, and you're creating the economy by what people are bidding. What else? Not Castles of Burgundy. I haven't played it, but one of the Castle game. I can't think what it's called right now. But basically, you're setting up what the bids for the tiles are, and then you're creating that economy. I just really like games that the players kind of are dictating the economy of the game as they play it. That's fun. That adds variety to every play and interactivity between the players. So that's my number 8. Number 7 goes kind of hand in hand with that, and this one's a little tougher to pinpoint necessarily, but it's resource management. You'll find it in a lot of games. It's the concept that you're collecting resources in a certain way to immediately pay them off to get a thing that may or may not allow you to collect more resources or get points or whatever the case is for the specific game. But it's when you really need to manage what you're bringing in, because your resources are really limited, really tight. What you're doing. There's a bunch of games that do this. I don't know why I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head. But you're just managing your resources and what you're doing with them as the game goes. And you got to make sure you're not getting too much of one thing or not planning properly, because that could put you behind the curve. It's just fun, and I guess Clans Caledonia fits that a little bit with the items on the board that you're utilizing to manage that economy, like I talked about just a little bit ago. So that's my number, whatever number we're on here, number 7. It says resource management. It's hard to specifically define, but hopefully you got the gist of what I was talking about. All right, my number 6 is one of those adjacent to the bottom 5 ones that I mentioned last time, but it's a semi-co-op or hidden trader games. It's a game where one person is kind of working with and against the group for their own objectives, and the group might call them out and kick them out of the game if they get found out. So you don't want to be too obvious with your trading. It's Shadows over Camelot. It's an example. I own Dead of Winter. I didn't pull it out on the list, but basically one person potentially, and that's another big key. Like, there doesn't necessarily have to be a traitor. Just the threat that the game offers a chance for someone to be working against the group while still working with the group just adds that little bit of variety to a normal co-op, that maybe they are, maybe they aren't working with us. I just enjoy that, and like I said, it's adjacent to the lying and deceiving, because I feel like it's not straight up lying and deceiving per se. It's an individual working for their own goal and the team goal, to an extent, and I kind of get away with it. I don't know. Maybe you think otherwise. If you do, write the comment below. But for me, I feel like Hidden Trader is different than lying and deceiving, and I really like having the co-op game with a twist, and that's kind of what I feel like this mechanism is. and that's the semi-co-op or hidden trader games. That brings me to the halfway point, not counting the cheats from earlier, and that's number 5 is interactive player turns. And this could be a variety of game styles, so maybe this is another cheat. I don't know how you look at it, but there's plenty of games where when it's not your turn, you don't have much to do except maybe plan your next move. But then there's games like Space Base where every time somebody else is going, you're also acting too, based on what they do. So in Space Base, for example, the person whose turn it is going to roll the dice, and they're going to take their my turn actions, but everybody else is going to take their somebody else's turn actions, which are different and lesser, but they're still actions. You're still doing something every single time somebody rolls the dice. And I just really like games that give everybody an opportunity to play at all times, and there's not a bunch of sitting around waiting. Or maybe there is some sitting around waiting, but at least it's everybody sitting around making their own moves for the most part. So I just enjoy games where there's something for everybody to do at all times. Interactive games, live games, whatever you want to call it. Keeping people involved in the action is a great mechanism to add to your game. And that's my number 5. All right, now we get into the ones that a lot of people are going to say are their favorite things probably too. So it kind of comes down to the order because these are going to be a lot of everybody's top favorite mechanisms list. And for me, my number 4 is deck and or bag building. And that's where you start, everybody starts with the same starting hand, same starting bag of chits, whatever you want to call it. And as you go, you're buying more things that you want to kind of play to the style you want to play. So this is games such as Dominion or Clank or Legendary, where the game is you're building your deck. Orleans, Altiplano, what you're doing. Quedlinburg, I don't know why I keep listing games. You get the idea. But what you're doing is you're using your hand that you pull out on each turn to build your deck or bag more for the next turn, and so on, until you've branched out on a different path than all your opponents to meet the objective of the game. It's just a really enjoyable mechanism to build your own thing as you play. Everybody starts with the same blank slate, but at the end of the game, it's different for everyone, depending on how they took their actions and what they bought, what they played. Really, there's numerous styles, co-ops, not co-ops, whatever you want to say. Decks and not deck, bag building, yeah. I just enjoy the mechanism a whole lot, but not as much as my next 3. So number 3 is worker placement. This is where you've got a set number of workers and a set number of places on the board, and you're taking a worker, putting them on a place on the board, and doing the action. And in a lot of games, you're blocking the action from other players at that point. So you're fighting each other for spots in a lot of the cases. I've got Viticulture here for one example. It's a great game, worker placement. Other worker placements, maybe you're placing a worker and pulling a worker, and both time you do either one, you're going to get whatever it is at that spot. And so you're manipulating the workers you even have in that case. It's a Garfield game. I can't come up with it right now. I haven't played them. That's why I can't come up with it. But was it Architects of the West Kingdom? Perhaps Raiders of the North Sea, or maybe both, maybe one of them. I don't remember. Somebody comment below. Let me know what I'm screwing up here. But yeah, so everybody's got the same number of workers and the same spots available to them, but you're fighting for them as the game goes along to achieve the objectives of the game. It's just really fun to plan an action and then have that spot taken. Typically, not all the time. Usually, in some games, multiple people can go there, everybody can go there. But most of the time, if a spot's taken in a worker placement, it's going to be blocked out until that worker is moved. So I really enjoy the back and forth of worker placements and manipulating how you're doing them and managing your resources again. But the resources this time are your workers and the spots on the board. That brings me to my top 2, and My number 2 is engine building. Again, we got Race for the Galaxy as an example. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition to a lesser extent. But this is where you're starting out with base actions, or maybe no actions until you play your first one. Whatever the case is, you've got very minimal things going on. But as the game progresses and you're adding more things to your tableau, typically, you're going to be able to build upon your actions. And then every turn, you're just doing more and more. And you're doing more because you've built that do more. Games like Wingspan, you got the birds out, and in the beginning you have no birds. And your engine is just, I'm going to buy a bird. And then you get a bird. And then you play the action that was connected to that bird. And now that bird's got an action. So you've done the action and you've done the bird action. For a quick and dirty explanation, I really enjoy engine building and manipulating how I want my engine to grow based on what's available to me at the time. And I play a lot of games with engine elements, and I really enjoy them. Really like being able to set up my own engine. I guess that's why it's engine building. So I always gravitate towards engine builders. I usually enjoy them no matter what the theme is, no matter how the game plays. If it's got engine building elements, I'm probably going to enjoy it, but not as much as my number 1. So the number 1 thing that I really like in games, and what I've considered my favorite games of all time, even though they kind of rotate around, most of them have this one thing in common, and this is action selection, where you've got a minimal amount of actions. Usually it's 5 for some reason. It seems to be 5. 5 is a pretty common number. 5 different actions, usually in card form, and you're going to pick one and do that action. Or maybe everybody will do the action in some cases, such as like Race for the Galaxy. You know, you've got the 5 actions you're doing. Everybody picks which one action they want to take that time in that round. You play them out, and then whatever actions get played by everybody. Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition does the same thing. But basically, whatever actions get played out. So, if, you know, and me and Joe play actions 1 and 2, and Sally plays action 4. In that round, everybody's doing action 1, 2, and 4. Or in other games, such as Arc Nova or Concordia, you're playing your own actions. So you're going to play your action out, and I'm going to do that action. And usually in these games, it sits there until you play the card that you get your actions back, or it sits there for a round. You got to do a different action, then you get it back. Whatever the case is, usually you're managing them in some way, where if you do action A is not available to do again right away. I'm thinking Scythe here without a card element, but on your individual board, you know, I'm going to do this action now, except for one of the whatever clans, whatever they're called in Scythe. I'm sorry, I don't own the game. I played it a few times, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like, you're going to take whatever action you did now, and you got to move to a different action in 6 successive turns. So you're kind of building around, what am I doing now so I can do this next time, so I can do that next time, so I can do that the follow time. Or in like Race for the Galaxy and Terraforming Mars, what are they going to do? Maybe I don't want to play that. Like, I want to play that action, but I'm pretty sure they're going to play that action. So maybe I want to play this action because I know I want to do this action too, and hope they do that other action that I really need to do. It's just, I really enjoy action selection as a mechanism. All my favorite games typically have that in some form or another, where you're choosing what you want to do this time, and then you're not going to do that next time, or maybe not for a few turns, whatever the case is for each individual game. But I just really love that puzzle of managing your actions and action selection. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite game mechanisms, and a preview of some of my favorite games if I ever get to doing a top whatever games list of all time. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Look forward to hearing your comments below. What are your favorite mechanisms? What mechanisms do you think I should check out if I didn't mention them in either of the 2 videos that I've done already? Leave your comment below from whatever I said earlier to correct me on. I really appreciate you being here. I will check you out next time. Thank you.